Okay, first up we have Siangri. I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Looks like you've got some interesting logo ideas here. Um, I like the words being built into the gun shape. I think that has a lot of potential, or the word being built into the hat. Um, and Yeah, and you've got that same kind of thing going on here. Or, I mean, there's a lot of great ideas going on here. The letters in the um, chamber there for the gun, and the person standing making the side of the D. So, a lot of very good ideas, kind of just overall good thinking. I feel like we're missing part of the top part of this image somehow. Um, but yeah, that is all the way zoomed out. So I guess and I actually really like the look of this kind of high contrast thing you've got going here. What I think is missing, however, is a storyboard. So the idea was to do a logo and a storyboard, and the storyboard should show a series of frames showing the explaining what the plan is for the title animation, and that's what we don't have. So lots of good ideas for logo and title style and design, and not a storyboard that breaks it down and shows us how the action's going to unfold. So I would say go back and make a storyboard, and so we can, and maybe just sort of narrow down your choices. I mean, you've got a lot of great choices here. I would say the top ones that catch my eye are the ones that have a word built into the shape of the gun, and probably I just really like the look of this hat and face there with the high contrast thing. And I think this has potential too. So you have a number of things that have good potential. It's just a question of kind of picking and then creating a storyboard. Okay, this is Reese. Hi, Reese. All good ideas here. Incorporating the clock and the title "Killing Time." I think that again, just kind of to clarify the assignment, the idea is to have a logo, like a sort of a company name, and then a title animation. So it would be like Reese Jones Presents, or some clever company name, and then the film name could be Killing Time, for example, and then you would do a storyboard showing a sequence of images explaining what the animation would be. For example, um, you have the watch on the chain swinging back and forth, and then you hear a gunshot, and the bullet hits the clock face and it goes spinning around. Just as an example off the top of my head, but you would need to do a series of drawings as a storyboard to explain the sequence of action that you have planned. But then you also need sort of a company name and logo, like a recognizable icon that sort of represents the company name, whether it's your own name or something you've made up. So all of these have potential, and I think, I mean, maybe it's too much, as I say, kind of on the nose to have a gun shoot the clock, although to me that's kind of the obvious choice, since it's a kind of a shootout and you have the name Killing Time. But maybe you can come up with something more clever. I don't know. Yeah, so good images, and I think clever to use the clock as an L, or the chains the I. Those, these are all good conceptual ideas, but I think then you need to take the next step, make a storyboard of a sequence of images, and then have a company logo. Next up is Jimmy, and again, clever title name. I like that, and I really appreciate when someone takes the time to draw out the text idea, so that rather than just like scrawling a text and saying you'll use some font, that you actually were thoughtful about how you want the lettering to look. So kudos for that. And I think there's some clever ideas going on with the O's being tear shaped here, um, and I like in the wood thing here too. So all of them are usable ideas. This is sort of the most classic Western font. I'm not sure I'm buying the sad faces. It looks a little bit too, at least in this form. I don't know, like sort of child drawing sad face rather than something you'd see in a title. But yeah, I think incorporating the teardrop, and I can imagine some animation going on there. But like I've said with the other ones we've reviewed so far, um, the idea is to have a storyboard which shows a sequence of images that explains the animation of what's going to happen for the title animation, and then also sort of the logo of the kind of company name, sort of the fictional company name that's made the film. So again, I think you need to draw those out and come up with those ideas, work those things out. Okay, next up we have Cody, and got the name High Noon, sort of a classic kind of Western name. Let's maybe zoom in on these a little bit. And looks like this one, I'm not sure what those diagonal lines are meant to be, um, but maybe these have like bullet holes in them, I think is the idea. And here we've got one of them is a clock face with guns on the side. Incorporated a hat here. Put it in a clock and then another sort of clock one. So yeah, I mean, I think you've got some elements to work with, and none of these really sort of jump out at me as that complete. And again, like I've been saying with these others, you need a logo for sort of the company name, and then a storyboard kind of planning out what um, the sequence of animation would be for your title animation. So it could be, you can incorporate a moving hands of a clock, or maybe guns firing, or bullets firing like in those. And maybe even a shadow moving, because with the idea of high noon and the sun being overhead and the shadow that it would cast below, so these are some ideas of what you can incorporate. But again, you'll need you've used the right kind of storyboard paper where you have the frames that show, but the idea is to have a sequence where we see through a series of image how the title animation happens. And then yeah, you would need a logo for like a company name as well. Okay, next up is James. And so, unlike the last few reviews, you do have the right idea where you have actually created a storyboard, which is great. So, start off with black screen, which is fine, and text appears, and then the gun, so we see the double barrel, and I think that makes sense to go with a company name. I think it's a good company name. I think that more thought about whether it's choice of font or incorporating the barrels of the shotgun into the title more so that somehow it seems part of the logo. For example, maybe the barrels could represent the L of the word barrel, or the L of the word double. And by the way, the word barrel only has one L, so you'll want to make sure you get the spelling right on that, unless you're somehow, you know, doing a play on that. But I think it'll just read as being misspelled if you use the two L's. Um, and yeah, gun shoots the text away. I think again, good idea, and a fun opportunity for animating the text and kind of a explosive, and maybe having them spin off the screen and very rapidly could look good. Flash, of light, and maybe a sound effect in there would be helpful. Um, yeah, and I think you could have put more time and thought into the mountain image. Maybe there's a foreground with some cacti and a road with a backdrop of mountains that you would see in the sort of classic Western film. Um, and yeah, so let's look at the yeah. And so you've got the town there, and I think that's I guess I'm wondering, are we going to use photos for this or illustrations? And I'm inclined to say maybe something more photographic, or maybe you take photos and kind of stylize them a little, or maybe you find some sort of classic photos, like some you know old photos. So here's the second idea. Pretty pistol. So you'll probably want to find maybe a photograph of a an intricately engraved pistol or something like that. So I guess it's a pretty similar idea, just a different name. In that, yeah, it's essentially the same thing, except for that you've replaced the pistol with the shotgun. So I guess I would say pretty much the same things. And finding a way to incorporate the gun more into the name, so it feels more like a logo rather than just an image next to some text. Like somehow it's incorporated, so it's like a recognizable thing. Maybe even the name Pretty Pistol is engraved into the pistol as an example, or think of something that you would like. But again, if you are going to use a photo background, it'd be interesting to see what photos you have in mind and how we you say transition, but how do we transition? Is it a dissolve? Does the camera pan from that to that? What do you have in mind? um, 3D fallback, scramble, and blur. Okay, not exactly sure what that is, but all right. Um, Mountain. Oh, okay, and it sort of ends the same. Yeah, so canyon pictures could, that could be good, and maybe you have something that's more like a logo if you went rather than for like a photographic background. Maybe you had some sort of silhouette of a recognizable canyon-like image that, or maybe it's made to be a bit more iconic rather than just looking like an illustration or a photograph of what a canyon might look like. So, again, I guess I think my critique is getting to be the same for all these choices, which is finding a way to make it not just text and an image, but some kind of logo where those two things are intertwined. But yeah, you've got three different storyboards. That's good. Honestly, any of them would be good, and I think there's kind of a fun animation thing of the guns blowing away the text, whereas here, but maybe that effect you're describing works good. But I guess I just, to me, with the guns blowing away the text, it goes along with the theme of a gun being in the image, whereas this effect you're describing may or may not have anything to do with a canyon. Like it doesn't sort of thematically doesn't necessarily tie in. It's just like, oh, I'll use this effect on here without any sort of um, kind of something that's justified uh, by the name or the image. Good work. Next we have Brittany. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see what's going on here. So the clock chimes. Pan in, I think you mean either dolly or zoom in. A pan is when you rotate a camera. A dolly is when you physically move a camera towards something, and a zoom is when you twist the lens control to kind of use the camera lens to make something appear closer. So it would either be a dolly or a zoom in. And the bell of the clock tower makes a sound, only matter of time, which is good. Going with the clock tower theme is good. Chimes again, cut to black. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning here. Alright, so we do chimes, we pan up, pan in, camera up. Okay. And 10. Having trouble reading that. What is that? Annihilation? I'm just not clear what letter this is right here. I know it's probably obvious to everybody else for some reason. I'm having trouble reading it. And oh, tintinabulation. Tintinabulation. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe just a little bit more thought about sort of a logo here, because really it's just sort of throwing text up, and I thought maybe something, some kind of graphic thing that represents this company name would be better than just having it over the clock. Yeah, and then we kind of chimes, and then you put only a matter of time over the clock, and that's perfectly fine. Although it might be nice to just think a little bit more about what you want to do with the text and how it's laid out, and then also maybe how does the text come in? Does it just fade in? Does it somehow could you could do like having the handles of the hands of the clock rotate around and revealing the text, or maybe a shadow passing over and so thinking of something clever for revealing the text, that kind of goes in with your theme and painted black. Um, so yeah, I feel like you could do a little bit more thought about just how that all ties together, and then a little bit more on the logo itself, just to make it more of a company logo rather than just text in front of something. Okay, next up is Marcus. Zoom in a little bit. Make sure I get to the top of this thing. Okay. Yeah, some nice drawings here. I like that you've put some time and detail into the wood sign. Um, and then bang, bang, bang. And then 3 consecutive shots leave holes in wood. And we say, oh, as in shots, as in gunshots. That makes sense. Okay, so for the O in showdown and the D and the O. Okay, good. Yeah, that works. Um, and this is, I think it's fine and stylistically interesting, but I think, what would the animation be there? And here we've got pans past cactus, and cactus reveals the title. Okay, yeah, that can always work. So I think the first and the last have a little bit more on as far as what the movement with the animation is, so that's, I would consider probably either the first one or the last one. Oh, okay, and here you've worked on the styling of the lettering a little bit, um, which is good, although I feel like it could be a little cleaner than it currently is. I mean, one thing that really helps, but this is kind of the closest, but just giving yourself some guidelines, just like a pencil line to just line up the tops, of stuff and get things a little straighter. So, if you look at the bottoms of these, it would just really help to have some guidelines in there, to help you do this more neatly, and, maybe use a ruler, that kind of thing. But it's good that you actually did put the time into this, because a lot of people did not. Um, so yeah, I think, from a animation point of view, either the top or the bottom one would work, and then you do need the kind of company name, logo as well, um, as a separate thing. Because right now you just have the film title, but not the. I mean, I see this as a film by Marcus, but that's not really a sort of a company logo that we want to have in there. Okay, next up, no, excuse me. Next up is Jasmine, and start out with some cacti and tumbleweed rolling by, rolls into a building. Camera moves upward. I'm having a little bit of trouble knowing what we're looking at there, but I guess it's tilting up to see this sign which says shoot down, and gun turns, the screen goes black. So I think that the drawings are pretty simplistic, and you could have put a little bit more time into those just to give it a sense of depth. Everything looks very flat, but maybe you'll do this using photographs, which is what I would recommend. And this is a usable concept, at least. Um, so I think that could work. As an you have the animation of both the tumbleweed and the camera tilt, and you've got the title. So yeah, that could all work. I think that these are kind of odd storyboard frames, because you normally you want a 16 by 9 ratio, and this is I don't know what it is. It looks like 6:1 or 5:1. I don't know what it is, but it's very widescreen. But we won't be rendering this stuff widescreen. Although I suppose you could. I've never seen anybody do that. Might be kind of interesting to do widescreen, but typically we wouldn't do that. So yeah, you might just want to think about what they'd look like at the normal 16 by 9 ratio. Um, and yeah, and then again, like I mentioned with others, you want kind of the logo of the company name, um, that comes in first before the film title. Next up is Elina. So we see a pair of dice. Hand comes in and grabs the dice, shakes left and right. Dice rolls onto the table. Dice lands on the one. Snake eyes. Okay. So I think it's okay for a title. I think that the question becomes the animation, because we don't really have the time to do sort of full on realistic frame by frame animation, and so it would have to be sort of simplistic, of kind of the hand kind of just sort of just moving, like, just without much articulation of the fingers, and grabbing and shaking. So I think that could be okay, I think, but you miss out on some of what would make this look good if you're just doing it in After Effects, which is, I think you want to see the dice as cubes that roll and bounce and all that, and if you that would be too much to draw, and we're not really doing the 3D stuff yet. So I think I just think this might be challenging to make look good with the way we're doing it in After Effects. So I think the idea of getting snake eyes on the dice is good. I think, and having that turn into snake is interesting. And so some transition from the dice to that. I don't know. We'll just have to be thoughtful on how to, incorporate it. And maybe you just want to do something like just make a nicely lit little video and just, I don't know how you would get snake eyes. Like, it would take a lot of tries, I suppose. Like, could be hundreds of attempts. I don't know. Or if you can find weighted dice, that would be amazing. But that would be probably a lot to ask given the time we have. So yeah, I guess I'm thinking of finding a way to use this, but sort of shift it to work well with a simple After Effects animation. So maybe you can come up with some concept there, and maybe it's just a question of it's more about the transition from the dice to the actual snake eyes than it is about the stuff leading up to it, and that could be very doable. So yeah, I mean, again, if Snake Eyes is the movie title, I wouldn't call Snake Eyes the logo. I would say the logo would be, if it said Snake Eyes Productions presents and then the name of the movie, then that is what we're looking for. But you want both. You want the kind of logo, production company name, and the title animation, as two sort of separate but things all in the same sequence. Okay, this is Anre, and let's take a look. So fade in from black, 6-shooter spinning, and back of round and chamber, slow motion, zoom in on chamber and turns, made by, and then zoom out. So I guess we're looking at that the titles are etched into the back of the bullets, which are in a spinning chamber. Zoom out to 6-shooter spinning to next chamber, next level films. So what I don't necessarily get is where the next level. So I see this kind of next. I guess it slows down, and then we see that on the back of that, and then spin to empty chamber through to reveal one and done. Okay. And okay, so I guess this is the next idea. So fade in from plain wood background. Kettle brand starts to come into frame. Created by. Kettle brand starts to burn wood, burning sound. Letters fade. Next level films with sort of looks like sort of like a Saturn planet kind of thing. I'm not sure. Kettle brand is removed. Flash on the round. Okay. Oh, okay. So this round part flashes, and to reveal logo, red hot glowing on wood, one and done. Or on. I'm not sure. Yeah, it looks like it's supposed to be one and done. Although I think you missed the. I guess that's a bullet there, and then end done. Because it's not really clear how that works out, but okay. And then last one. Um, Fade in from black, steer skull, zooming in closer at a slow pace. We start to see the detail on it. Eyes start to glow red. The whole screen turns red. And fade screen from black, one and done. Created by Next Level Film. So it looks like on this one you probably need to think more about. It looks like you put a lot of effort into the cow skull thing, but you need to think about how you want to do the Next Level Film thing. So there's really a lot of good material to work with here. I guess I'm both just because of the nature of After Effects, and I think this is a good concept. I'm personally most interested in this idea because you can play with the rotation and the kind of camera zooming in and out to the different areas and having the text look like it's etched into the bullets. I think it's all just a good ideas. I think they're good ideas. So I think you might have to adapt this a little bit to make it a little more doable. But I think that personally, that's the one that I feel like has the most potential. Don't quite see how the Next Level Films text is played out, but I'm sure you can figure that out. And maybe you want to do find a photograph of the revolver chambers and bullets, and then modify in Photoshop those photographs to get the text to look like it's etched into there, like it's been cut into the metal. So yeah, but lots of good ideas. You clearly put some time into this, so appreciate that. Next up is Amelia. Okay, Firefly title sequence. Establishing shot of pond, marsh at night. Fireflies fly into screen towards the center. Okay, so you could probably just pretty much do glowing dots moving around. There's this pretty cool thing in After Effects where you can actually record your mouse movements, which is a good way to get something like a firefly kind of animation, just by sort of dragging the mouse around the screen in sort of little figure eight or kind of curvy, quick movements. And you can get a lot of done quickly that way, which would be more time consuming to hand animate. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but if you do decide to do that, let me know and I can do a little demo of that. It's pretty cool. Then they form into a logo. Good. Yeah. Which I can see sort of glowing and then resolving into that. Yeah, which is a nice logo design. Logo cuts to presents, and then they spell out Midnight Marauder. Okay. Yeah, maybe they could. Maybe they could, depart from this and fly around for a moment before they form that longer thing again. The other thing is that the logo thing does not have to be continuous with the film title. Like they can be two separate things where you do the Firefly thing for the title and you do something different. I'm sorry, you do the Firefly thing for the logo and then you do something different for the title. So you might consider that. Then let's take a look at the other ones. Logo fades up to presents. Tumbleweed rolls across screen. Silhouetted cowboy appears in corner. Quick. Cowboy raises arm to shoot. Smoke appears. And quick draw. Yeah, I think that's okay. I think that the tumbleweed thing is pretty. Well, it's just not that original. I guess I'm sort of a lot more excited about the Firefly thing than this one. I think certainly this could work. I think there's a limit to how much sort of character animation you can do, so you'd have to keep this raising arm to shoot thing fairly simple, but it's certainly doable if you keep it kind of simple. Let's keep going to the next one. Huge metal logo presents, comes from above and below, black background, maybe at studios. Packing iron. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, scorching across screen. I guess the sparks represent that it's scorching, like it's hot, or maybe it's glowing a little bit. Oh, okay. And then here we have a thing with playing cards laying across the screen and blowing them away, and left with the title card. I think that has some interesting potential. I think it's challenging to do the animation to get those all to blow away without using something like dynamics. But uh, yeah, I think there's some potential in this card one as well. That could look kind of nice. So, but I guess if I had to pick, I would choose the Firefly one. Though any of them could work. Yeah, good work on this. You obviously put, you've got a nice logo. You've put time and thought into what the animation would be. Their original ideas. This is very good work. Okay, next up is Ashley. So we have a few different text ideas for your move. They all look a little rough, so nothing jumping out at me. Okay, and there's a storyboard. Let's zoom in a bit. So, bartender's polishing glass, cowboy's having a drink, bartender remains in background, cowboy takes a sip, empty glasses on table, zoom in poster, which is the title of the movies, showdown at 3:58 p.m. and then fade to black. I think that first of all, these drawings are kind of extremely primitive, and I would sort of expect a little bit more effort in the drawings. But the other thing I would say is what you're describing here, somebody polishing a glass and someone taking a sip is probably, um, maybe not like that. You'd want to do that as sort of a full kind of frame by frame animation, I imagine. And I think that's going to be difficult. So let's see what else you got. I'm not really a big fan of that. Okay. Um, Table with 3 bottles and glasses. Well, studio name zooms in. Oasis Studios presents. Gunfires knocking a bottle down reveals part of the movie title while the text on the table changes. Next bottle is shot down, revealing the next portion. And the last cop is shot. So I actually think this conceptually um, is much more doable and applies better to the kind of After Effects animation we'll be doing. You could do interesting things like when they hit these bottles, there could be like a splatter of the liquid that was in them that stains the wall behind them or something, just to keep it kind of interesting, um, and make it feel more like something's going on. And yeah, you have a hits the O in move at the end, so that works. Again, I would say that these drawings are leave some to be desired. So it'd be good to just put more time into kind of a nice rendering of your idea, which always sell it better. But conceptually, this could work. Okay, black background fades out into cowboy walking along desert while text eases from the left. Eases. So the slides in there. And again, with this walking along, we don't really have the time to do kind of a full walk animation for this. So already I'm a little concerned about this one. Cowboy stands, his hat is covering his eyes while screen is gradually moving to the left. So the camera's moving to the left. He smiles, draws gun, and shoots. The text flies away once the trigger is fired. Focus on the bullet traveling. Switches angles and show front view of bullet and your move. So, I mean, something like this bullet animation part might be doable, but the kind of full character cowboy stuff, not so much. So, yeah, I mean, I think of the three, certainly I'm leaning towards the middle one being the most doable, um, for the way we're animating this in After Effects. Okay, finally we have Michelle. And yeah, nice illustration here of a hand. That looks good with the ash coming down, really good. Yeah, and that could be good. You could sort of find some, with a nice illustration of a hand, and you could do find some, just some video of some cigarette smoke and just composite that on top of it with After Effects. That'd be very doable. Um, I guess I'm not really sure how these relate to each other. Like, how do we go from this cigarette image to the bang? Um, So yeah, I guess you've started with a great drawing, but it looks like you don't have sort of the title figure out, and um, you're just saying Western font. So I think that it just feels a little unfinished. I think you can go further with it, but this definitely has potential. I think the name Ash Studios is a good one, and I think this has potential. But I guess how the rest of it ties together and what the title and so forth is, it's not really clear from this. So I think you could work a little bit more to flesh that out some.